Welcome, my friend, to Next Level Change Success. I'm Therese, a change strategist and practitioner with over 20 years of experience designing and delivering impactful change programs across various industries. In this podcast, I share real-world practical strategies to help you create and deliver positive change experiences, whether you're a leader, practitioner, or someone looking to bring new ways of working to life. In today's fast-paced world, change is constant. Here we focus on how you can put people at the centre of your change strategy, because people with a sense of purpose are the most important link in driving performance. So if you're ready to create meaningful change and achieve all the success that comes with it, keep listening. Together, let's change the conversation and take it to the next level. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name is Therese, and I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm recording on Tharrawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording, and to elders both past, present, and emerging. So we're in the final countdown this year, and yes, festive break and holidays are almost upon us, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, whatever your tradition at this time of year is. And I wanted to talk about the importance of change reviews and really reflecting upon the year that was, because so often it's hard if you are putting together a change practice, if you've been working hard all year on a change program, if you have been working through changes with your team, with departments. It is important to reflect on progress, because if you don't get to the end of the year and either celebrate success, note down achievements, if you don't assist others to see those achievements as well, which is just as important, it can be very disheartening, and people can essentially flop into the end of the year tired, exhausted, over it, possibly over the level of frustration, de-energized, needing to re-energize. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But certainly reviewing and reflecting upon what you have implemented, who you've worked with, what you've enjoyed, why you've enjoyed it, how you've enjoyed it. These are all the things that are really important to sit with. And I encourage you for even half an hour, especially if you're a leader of a team, is to book in the time, possibly more than half an hour with your team, to not talk about what was delivered, which was successful, but about things that worked well, why they worked well, what will we take into our holiday breaks as a team, what do you feel was your biggest win versus the team's biggest win. And you can get some really interesting conversation as a result of that when thinking about the celebration of delivery, but effective delivery more so. So just remember that just doing things is not necessarily an achievement. Learning from it absolutely is. And this is one of the things I read something in social media the other day which talked about, I've read 49 books this year. Someone was talking about it on Instagram, and I thought, well, reading 49 books is great. However, it's about the effectiveness. Did you learn from those books? What did you enjoy from those books? And I think that is when considering projects or delivering of things or a journey that you've had this year. It's not just about the doing, it's about what worked really well. Where do I feel like it may have fell short of my expectation, and why? And what would I do differently, and what will I do differently next year? And having that conversation now as we approach the holiday break is important. I also find that documenting lessons, if you've been implementing projects, that's a really handy thing to do at this point in the year, because if you're anything like me, when I go on holiday break, I actually have a great ability to switch off, almost forget my passwords. I find that when I come back, I'm having to recalibrate. So what I do is I make sure that I'm taking all the notes that I need to before I go on break, so that on the first day of logging on, I already have, this is my focus for this month, so I don't have to think too much about it. But I absolutely do disconnect. And I'm hoping that for you over this festive break as well, that you consciously disconnect. That means not being accessible on your phone. This is the beauty if you have a work phone versus a personal phone that is used for work. It's good to have that separation. Certainly shutting down and packing the laptop away, not just having it there in the office. Close it, put it into the cupboard. Certainly packing it away as a tangible action of closing out the year, but also disconnecting is also really important. And it might take you a couple of days after you first go on leave to unpack and defrag from the year that has been. But I do find that at this point, you've got 2 weeks. Some people have two weeks and a couple of days to close out the year and to create that space for your team and to challenge. And I do challenge you in that delivery is not about success. It's about effectiveness. It's about a journey. Have you achieved everything that you wanted to this year? I also encourage you to, from a change perspective, if you're working on projects or programs, get a bit of sentiment around the table around people's emotional state. Are they feeling exhausted? Are they feeling happy heading into the festive break? What is happening? Where are people at? Because it gives you an idea of the rhythm of the year. And year on year, as people's tenure grows in most organisations, they have a really good idea around the rhythm at this time of year. And all things are not equal depending upon what industry you're in. So some people are ramping up, some people are ramping down. Some people just aren't ramping anywhere. It's just a constant churn that happens, and that's just a given. So they're just looking to, what I talked about before, flop into the end of the year. And I think that is something to be explored as well, especially if you're a leader, around how you can consciously support your team to have a wind down or pathway into the year if they have been fully in the delivery and implementation mode. So these are the things that as a leader you absolutely have the influence and power to do, is to support your team in that. If you're in a program, of course, just being able to bring a bit of festive spirit or some joy to the team at the end of the year, it's good to do, but also support leaders to do the same with their teams, and even in the project environment, the project manager, the program manager, to get a bit of a, hey, we did a good job happening at the end of the year, regardless of where you're up to in your program, because sometimes if you're on a multi-year program, it's a slow burn, right? So keeping enthusiasm and keeping a great momentum, and also at the end of the year, good closure is good when it comes from a project or program perspective. So a couple of things that you can do. If you're a change practitioner or facilitator in a program environment and you have delivered things this year, my question is, have you run the post-implementation or change implementation review? Have you run a retro? Have you gathered feedback? What has that created for you? What basis of learning has that created for you about how you're going to approach change next year? If you have been running retros and really been focusing on the blame game, so, this didn't work well because of X, Y, Z, and not really focused on next time, I would approach this and try something new. The importance of asking the question and trying out a different way or a theme, a variation on a theme. So it might be a different way to engage leaders because leadership is so important. These are the things that you can think about. And even over the festive break, sometimes the best ideas you have is when you're obviously out about enjoying life and then you think, oh, actually, I should try something different with that leadership group next year. Or I think I might create some new templates to go with my program next year. And from a change perspective, these are the things that you can do. You would probably have more energy to think about it. So I always like to have a notebook handy. I am shocking with the amount of notebooks I have around my house, let alone what I take on holiday. But it's just so that I can note things down and get it out of my head, move on from it, know that it's captured, so that when I go back to the workplace or go back on an engagement, then I'm definitely trying something new and evolving. Because evolution, the great thing about the end of the year is it's a great evolutionary point. It's good to put the stake in the ground at the end of the calendar year and say, okay, this is the year that was, and then to think about, okay, what do I want to create next year? from a change perspective, as well as from an experience perspective. Knowing that the world is connected, that the workplace is ever changing. So whether it be strategies, whether it be that many organisations have gone through cost cutting this year. There has been a very interesting cycle at the end of the year within Australia around change and change roles. They've definitely really picked up in the last 2 months around the number of roles that are getting advertised for change. Those aha moments of we need change practitioners here to help us through transformations, through change, is without doubt the highlight that's happening, especially within New South Wales for sure, in Australia, so within our state. So these are the things that I think heading into next year, everything is swings and roundabouts, and it feels like that the lull in recruitment for change has definitely abated, and we're now into the need and urgent need for good quality change practitioners in organisations, which is great to see across the industry, and especially from a change perspective, just generally for the community of practitioners, some who are really great practitioners. I think the interesting thing is some are reflecting on being choosier about what organisations they go into and what they're up for or not up for. And when I talk about that, some change practitioners do like to go into organisations where they can make a difference. Some struggle with the fact that the change maturity or the ability to have a change-based conversation is not as strong as they would like. So this is very powerful around the choice now of the higher end of practitioners who have the experience and who they're choosing to work with and who they're choosing not to work with. And so now employers need to be a little bit more mindful, or they're going to really struggle around being able to build up the change expertise or attract and retain the right change people in their organisation. Part of the reason why I say that is because year on year, if you're working in change and you're observing, or you might be a little bit frustrated throughout the journey, throughout the year, at the end of the year, if you're reflecting upon it and getting very present to the pluses and to the wins that you've had in an organisation, the people you've worked with, who you've really enjoyed working with, the delivery aspects, the things that you've achieved, these are the things that I think bring a lot of joy to a change person or to anyone, even if you're a leader, at the end of the year, of the differences you have made. And if you're finding that it has just been a grind all year, you've been frustrated all year, the reflection points then are, is this the right role for me? Am I taking the right approach? Do I need to shift something in myself around my belief systems, around how I approach things to get better outcomes? Which is always a really profound question to ask for those who are self-aware, and if you're up for the reflection and the honest truth around it, this might be the time that, yes, you're willing to ask those questions around belief systems that you have, the driving behaviours that are getting the outcomes that you're getting when it comes to stakeholder engagement, or when it comes to working with other people or introducing change. These are the powerful conversations that you can have, and this is a great time of year to have them, sitting back, reflecting upon where your potential is being realised or where it's being wasted and why it's being wasted. One of the biggest achievements from my perspective this year has been being really committed to recording these weekly for you, to share insights, to take different approaches. Season 5 is next year, and as all evolutionary cycles are, the topics I will be covering will be some same, some different, some that look at more the emerging change and transformation related to AI, which is such a very interesting landscape, and also about the need, which I've talked about this year, the need to wrap a change plan and strategy around the introduction of AI. We're going to explore more about culture and organisation culture next year, without doubt, because especially from an AI perspective, it impacts your culture. Then also how that from a connected thinking perspective impacts your dimensions of your workforce. That is going to be, this is where evolution and technology, which moves people forward and at speed, when really thinking about these ripples that are starting to happen across organisations, how those can be navigated and managed well from a people perspective, like the people dimensions. It's quite thought-provoking about what people are seeing around where organisations are diving into AI and then having to get back to the edge of the water to be able to find solid ground again, because they've gone in too far, too hard and too fast, and then paid a price for it. And this is where the bells and whistles and the shiny can really have organisations come unstuck. So I'll be talking a bit about that next year, because it is a really interesting topic and observational, where you see organisations kind of delving into those areas. And of course, we're going to have courses next year, virtual webinars as well. So you'll hear more about that. I'll be talking about that on this podcast through next year as well. And I just want to say thank you for listening. I'll be saying the same thing at the next week's episode, but I just also want to emphasize my gratitude to you as a listener of Next Level Change Success. You might know me, you might have come across my path in the work environment. You may not have ever met me, but you are showing up and you're investing in yourself, and I applaud you wholeheartedly for that, because that's the value. One of the core values that I have is continuous improvement, continuous learning. I hope you're getting some value out of these podcast episodes every week, and next year I am just as committed, if not more, to providing you with value off the back of these podcast episodes. So thank you so much for listening, and just remember that change matters, because you, your people, your organisation and your purpose, it all matters. Have a great day.